Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping in some fascinating source material today. Key excerpts from Tony Hsieh's book, Delivering Happiness.
Yeah, and it's not quite your typical business book, is it? Or even a straight autobiography. It reads much more like a personal journey, how he navigated building businesses while, looking for happiness.
Right. And our mission here in this deep dive is really to pull out those key insights, the surprising bits, the sort of aha moments from his path. We want to give you a shortcut, basically, to understanding the thinking behind something as unique as Zappos.
Exactly. We're here to walk you through these stories, help connect the dots between, say, an early childhood venture and the core values that define Zappos later on.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's unpack this source material together. So where does this all start? The source takes us way back, right? Childhood ventures. That famous worm farm at age 9.
Oh, yeah, the worm farm. Invested, what was it, $33.45, feeding them raw egg yolks because, athletes did it. And the goal wasn't just farming worms.
No, it was taking down the competition, the #1 seller in the county, at 9.
That's some serious ambition early on. And it's interesting, he notes feeling bad when it failed. It kind of reminds you of that Edison quote, doesn't it? Failing your way to success.
Yeah, data, not just defeat. So from worms, he moved on. Inspired by Boys Life magazine classifieds, apparently.
Right, the Gobbler newsletter first. Selling copies for $5, then figuring out, hey, I can sell ads for $20.
Sure.
Even got his barber to advertise.
Learning about revenue streams super early. Then a very short stint selling greeting cards door to door. Lasted about 10 minutes, the source says.
Back to the classifieds, and that's where the button-making kit came in.
A $50 kit, another $50 in parts, making buttons for 25 cents each, but pulling in like $200 a month in middle school.
Which is decent money. But the real takeaway wasn't just the cash, was it? What was the big lesson there?
It was realizing he could run a successful business entirely through the mail. No face-to-face needed.
Think about that. For someone who would later build a huge e-commerce company, that's foundational.
He even outsourced the button making to his brothers. But then he passed it on. Why walk away from profit?
Got bored. Simple as that, according to the source. He wanted something he felt more, passionate about. So even then, it wasn't just about the money.
And speaking of things that engaged him, there was the tech side too. High school computer lab, learning Pascal, aiming for the AP test. Basic.
Which led him straight to bulletin board systems, BBSs, you remember those, pre-internet dial-up communities?
Oh yeah, connecting with strangers long distance, dialing in with that modem screech.
A whole different world. And the source tells that story about the computer lab phone line, finding out it wasn't restricted.
Uh-oh. Free long-distance calls, which led, inevitably, to
976 numbers.
Right.
976 joke it, 976-XXY. And nearly getting caught by a teacher, having to quickly calculate his age based on being born in 1966. Classic teenage stuff.
Definitely. But it wasn't all tech and mischief. His other activities showed an interest in creating experiences, right?
Yeah, electronics club, ham radio, volunteering at a haunted house.
Yeah.
Even being a light board operator for plays. He liked creating that emotional journey for people. Did a magic act too.
And he had jobs. Video game tester at Lucasfilm, pretty cool gig for $6 an hour.
Yeah.
And programming at GDI for $15 an hour.
But even with the better pay, GDI, he talks about the excitement of waiting for the mailman during the button business days. That anticipation felt better.
That feeling pushed him to research products with high margins, high average selling prices, which led to the slightly unusual example of
Gentle dams as a component for magic tricks, pricing them at $10, figuring out the ad cost, calculating potential profit. It shows that analytical, outside-the-box thinking early on.
So then Harvard, what was the driving force there?
He talks a lot about Asian parental expectations. Academics, career, preferably doctor something, and musical mastery. Intense pressure.
The music practice sounds wild. Multiple instruments, half-hour daily, more on weekends. But he found a workaround.
Yeah, used a tape recorder, play back old practice sessions while he actually read. Little life hack there. He also mentions the huge contrast between his strict upbringing, like 1 hour of TV a week, and the freedom at Harvard, which led to 4 hours a day.
And that class schedule, only 3 days a week, sounds great, but it led to chaos.
A totally messed up 48-hour sleep cycle, skipping classes because the incremental benefit didn't seem worth it. Very logical, maybe not very wise.
Then there was that Bible class challenge. 100 possible final exam topics, 2 weeks to study. How'd he handle that?
Leveraged the tech of the time, electronic news groups, organized a virtual study group, everyone researched topics, emailed in paragraphs.
And he compiled it, photocopied, bound it, and sold it for $20. Only to contributors, though. Made a profit and got a story in the crimson. That's some creative problem solving.
He had other jobs too. Catering, bartending, got a mixology certificate, more programming. Microsoft internship, worked for BBN, got secret clearance.
Yeah.
Which led to the gang name, Secret, or Ancient Chinese Secret. Hilarious. And before Oracle, he took over the Quincy House Grill.
Yeah, the late night spot in his dorm.
Yeah.
Invested $2 K, added pizza, music videos recorded off MTV, paused for commercials, tripled sales. That's where he met Alfred.
His future Zappos partner, because Alfred bought a large pepperoni every single night.
And Alfred was running his own side hustle, buying the whole pizza, selling slices to roommates for way more profit per hour than Tony was making running the whole operation.
A lesson in arbitrage right there.
Yeah.
So he graduates, lands the Oracle job, high pay, felt like success initially.
Well, lucky, yeah. Getting paid good money to do something that took almost no effort. Pretty relaxed routine.
But we know where this leads. Boredom, lack of fulfillment. So he starts a web design business on the side with Sanjay, working for free at first.
And the story of him trying to quit Oracle is just
Yeah.
classic. The ice cubes and the teacup prank, the nervous attempts, the bathroom trips, accidentally saying no, sorry, when he finally bumped into his boss.
Until he just impulsively walked in. And the boss assumed he had funding for a startup.
But the truth was simpler. He was just bored. Wanted control, adventure, even if it meant less money initially. That theme keeps coming back.
Okay, so they quit Oracle for the web design dream, but the reality wasn't quite so glamorous at first.
Not at all. Sitting around, drumming up occasional sales, watching Sanjay nap in a coat closet, starting to doubt the decision.
But that downtime, surfing the web out of boredom, that's what sparked the link exchange idea, right? Exchanging banner ads for small sites.
Exactly. And the validation was incredibly fast. Emailed 50 sites, over half signed up in 24 hours. Boom, they knew they had something.
So they poured all their energy into growing the network, not even focused on money at first.
Just building something cool that people liked, working crazy hours, programming customer service emails, and that obsession with fast email replies, like within 10 minutes. People were amazed.
Built incredible loyalty early on. Then, only 5 months in, the first acquisition offer comes. $2 million cash.
They talked it over, decided to hold out. They were happy running it, so they had a strong negotiating position, really. Glad they didn't sell then, he says.
Smart move. They brought in partners, Hadi and Ali, got a real office in SF, started hiring friends.
Grew to 25 people, mostly friends, by December. And that's when Jerry Yang from Yahoo called.
Yeah.
They thought, okay, advertising deal.
Nope. Acquisition interest, offer, $20 million.
Big wow moment. Huge relief they hadn't taken the $2 million earlier. But deciding wasn't easy. Took days of angst with Sanjay and Ali before telling the team.
And Tony did that thought experiment, right? What would he actually do with $20 million?
Yeah, listed it out. Condo, big TV, home theater, vacations, computer. Start another company. And the list was surprisingly short.
He realized he could already afford a lot of it, but hadn't bought it. The key insight.
He was already doing what he wanted, running this exciting company. Why sell it just to start another one? Owning property could wait. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, as that first potential buyer said. They decided to go for it.
And the culture then sounds amazing. That monthly important meeting, hazing ritual, the VC doing the Macarena.
Moritz, tears streaming down people's faces, laughing. He describes looking around, feeling like it was a fairy tale. I can't believe this is real.
But the fairy tale started to fade as they grew bigger.
Yeah, the culture changed. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, he called it. Politics, positioning, rumors.
Yeah.
Not one single thing, but the overall effect became, well, torture for him.
Despite that internal friction, they still attracted interest from Yahoo, Netscape, Microsoft.
And eventually sold to Microsoft. Done super fast. That phrase, vest in peace, really says a lot about what often happens after acquisitions like that.
So post-Microsoft sale, life was different.
Very different. Autopilot, waking late, couple hours of email, leaving early, sometimes skipping the office altogether. Loads of free time, but not sure what to do with it.
He'd bought the stuff on his $20 million list. The condo, the TV, still wasn't feeling it. So Vegas and poker became the thing.
Yeah, but he says it wasn't just about money. It was the challenge, beating the game, the strategy against other players, believing he could win long term.
But mostly, that time was about introspection, right? Questioning what money was really for. Why stay at Microsoft just to vest more stock?
He made that list of his happiest moments.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, none involved money.
What was on the list?
Building things, being creative, connecting with friends, talking all night. Simple stuff like trick-or-treating, a baked potato after swimming, pickles.
Mm-hmm.
He really emphasizes the pickles.
Huh. Consistently drawn to creation and connection, not accumulation. He even remembered his childhood dream, spy, robot inventor, living above a movie theater with a Taco Bell.
And then he saw that complex being built. Lofts, movie theater, Taco Bell, took it as a sign.
Which led to starting Venture Frogs, the incubator, with Alfred. Raised $27 million from the Link Exchange folks, got a loft office, started meeting companies.
And that's when the voicemail came in from Nick Swinmurn about shoesite.com, the Amazon of shoes.
Initial reaction, total skepticism.
Called it the poster child of bad internet ideas. Who buy shoes online without trying them on? A pretty common thought back then, to be fair.
But he met Nick, learned about the progress, $2 calories and orders a week. Nick literally buying shoes at local stores to fulfill them, just proving the concept.
But the real plan was smarter. Partnering with brands, inventory feeds, drop shipping, and the source connects his poker playing to business strategy here.
Right, the table selection analogy. Choosing the right market is the most important decision. It's okay to switch tables if one's too tough.
Marketing is bluffing, acting weak when strong, strong when weak. Long-term focus over short-term wins.
And the biggest lesson from poker.
The game starts before you sit down. Choosing the right table, the right market is everything.
But even finding those parallels, poker wasn't fulfilling. Endless hours, but not building anything. He needed to change tables again.
Yeah, he mentioned some dabbling after poker, day trading, investing in a movie cameo, losing money on both. Just reinforced that he needed to create, not just invest passively.
Okay, so back to Zappos. They needed funding. Sequoia, despite the Link Exchange connection, was hesitant.
So Tony and Alfred stepped up again, invested more themselves, higher risk, putting more eggs in that basket. But they believed in the Zappos team's passion, their long-term commitment.
And they decided to get more involved to protect the investment. Hence, the Venture Frogs incubator idea, office space, services, working closely.
But the incubator space wasn't ready for months, and Zappos was running out of time. That led to Tony's spontaneous offer.
Move Zappos into his loft, right after New Year's, convert his living space into their temporary office.
Huge move. Fred and Nick were surprised, but saw the potential. Tony called with the conditions. Move in, and he gets way more involved.
And that proximity, everyone crammed into the loft, it changed the dynamic, didn't it?
Totally. It became the default hangout spot for this growing tribe, friends of friends. Work and social life just blurred completely.
Created real connection, stability, excitement, a true tribe forming.
This desire to, architect social experiences led him to get that bigger loft, 810. Not for living space, really tiny bedroom, huge open area, but specifically for parties and gatherings.
Envisioning champagne brunches, after parties, a private nightclub vibe, planned the first big bash for his 26th birthday.
And around this time, he had that warehouse rave experience that was so impactful for him.
Right. Giant lasers, fog, everyone moving together, Red Bull, UV lights, feeling part of this massive, united tribe, music moving through them.
He called it an experiential epiphany. Finally getting techno music, needing the right mindset like a Rosetta Stone.
Until the fog machines set off the fire alarms at 3 a.m., firemen show up, laugh, wish them Happy New Year. Relief.
But after the party ended, the tribe kind of scattered. No shared purpose beyond partying. He realized party planning wasn't his calling. It was a hobby. He needed something more meaningful.
Which brings us back to the harsh business realities. Venture Frogs tried raising a second fund, $100 million target, and got zero interest.
Ouch. That must stung after the Link Exchange credibility.
Huge self-doubt kicked in. Was Link Exchange just luck? A .com lottery win? Meanwhile, Zappos was hemorrhaging cash. An infection, he called it.
So drastic measures. A 9-month survival plan, outlined in an urgent email.
What was the focus?
Brutal focus. Watch every penny, maximize gross profit, bigger orders, better conversion, more repeat customers. Only work on projects that directly contributed to gross profit. Goal. Just get profitable enough to survive.
And this meant tough calls.
Big ones. Layoffs. Asking remaining folks to take huge pay cuts or work just for equity. Tony himself went down to $24 a year salary.
Wow. People had to leave because they couldn't pay rent.
Yeah, so they got creative, put employees up in the empty party loft, Club BIO, rent-free, uses other lofts too. The remaining team adopted this all-for-one, one-for-all mentality.
Sounds incredibly stressful. Shifting focus from customer service just to survival.
It was, but the source points out an unexpected positive. The hardship brought everyone who stayed incredibly close. Shared goal, shared sacrifice, fierce passion. It forged an intense bond.
While fighting for survival, they pinpointed that key limitation. drop shipping. Couldn't get the best brands because those brands only sold to retailers who held inventory.
Fred explained the brick-and-mortar model. Order ahead, pay, take the risk. Zappos wasn't doing that. They realized they had to. But it was a massive shift.
What were the hurdles?
Huge ones. Hiring buyers, convincing brands used to physical stores, rewriting software, getting a warehouse, staffing it, and, the big one, finding cash for inventory.
How'd they tackle convincing the brands?
Some clever, maybe slightly cheeky tactics. Turning the reception area into a store and asking, well, what is the definition of a store? Or buying a tiny retiring shoe store in the middle of nowhere to get grandfathered in.
They knew this was betting the company, right? Either save Zappos or speed up its demise. Drop shipping alone was a slow death.
And that's when Tony made his secret move. Liquidating almost everything he had left, betting his personal fortune around $2 million, it seems, on Zappos. Didn't tell Fred at first.
Wow. He saw it as the right move, though, not reckless. Believed in the potential in Fred. So they pulled the trigger on the inventory plan. Fred's calling brands, reception's a shoe store, and it starts working. Sales pick up.
But they run out of space fast. That office could only hold like 5,000 pairs.
So they find and buy that small mom-and-pop store in Willows, California. Tiny town.
And the inventory model change just fuels explosive growth. Sales lead from $1.6 million in 2000 to $8.6 million in 2001. Huge validation. Everyone's excited, even though they're still not cash flow positive because they're buying all this inventory.
Next challenge, moving 40,000 pairs from Willows to a bigger warehouse in Kentucky. Employees pitch in, pack 5 semi-trucks. Fred and Tony head off for a planned vacation, thinking it's handled.
And then, disaster. One truck disappears. 20% of their inventory, $500,000 retail value, just gone.
Oh no, they had to tell 20% of their customers they weren't getting their shoes. People must have been furious.
Some threatened the Better Business Bureau. Didn't believe them. Definitely put a cloud over that vacation. Yeah. The problems didn't stop there. The new e-logistics warehouse partnership in Kentucky. A mess, the source says. Keith had to basically live there for weeks, sorting it out.
And all this while facing a severe cash crunch again. Less than 2 months of cash left. Needed money for inventory desperately.
So Tony puts the party loft club bio up for sale. No offers. Drops the price drastically, like 40% below what he paid.
Fred's reaction, according to the source, a gulp, feeling terrible about the loss. But Tony justified it better to invest in Zappos' potential 10x return than let the property sit, trying to sound confident.
He admits it was one of the most stressful times, worrying about the logistics move, racing against time to sell the loft.
And amidst this chaos, he goes ahead with the planned Kilimanjaro climb with Jen Lim.
Yeah, felt like the worst possible time to be out of touch, but realized staying wouldn't help sell the loft faster.
Yeah.
Left instructions with his dad, accept any offer.
The climb itself sounds grueling. Rain, altitude sickness, pitch black summit night, tiny steps, bundled up.
He describes it as a powerful experience. Thinking about Zappos stress, vultures circling, cash outflow like an infection, but the physical struggle on the mountain put it in perspective, reflecting on simple things he missed, like a warm shower or a Twinkie melt.
Came down feeling lighter, less stressed. The business worries didn't seem quite as overwhelming after surviving the mountain.
But the reality check came fast. Checked email at the first hotel, still no offer on the loft, lowered the price again.
2 weeks later, with literally 2 weeks of cash left, an offer finally came in, 40% below his purchase price.
Accepted immediately. No time to negotiate, signing the papers, trying not to think about the loss, the memories, just pure survival mode.
The logistics nightmare taught them a lesson, though.
Absolutely. Can't rely on third parties for core operations. Need to take control. Keith drove around Kentucky, found an empty warehouse near Louisville Airport, 50,000 square feet, expandable.
Decision made. Run their own warehouse. Sign the lease. Tony decided he had to go help set it up, drove back with Keith. 20 hours straight.
That drive sounds intense. Energy drinks, loud music, splashing water. A metaphor for the company state, maybe?
During the drive, they talked bigger picture, right? Expanding categories, handbags, apparel, moving to a bigger table.
Yeah, and even then, amidst the crisis, they got that customer email mentioning Zappos Airlines after a surprise shipping upgrade. Shows that customer focus never totally disappeared.
Fred mentioned Good to Great by Jim Collins. Tony agreed, highlighting the point about priorities. More than 3 means you have none.
They connected that back to customer service. Even short-term sacrifices like upgrades pay off long-term, believing in those dividends.
But the new warehouse meant cash was even tighter. Back to that weekly payroll anxiety.
That juggling act with Fred. Employees or vendors. Only cash for about 70% of invoices. Fred deciding who got paid based on who called loudest, trying to keep relationships intact. Definitely not ideal, but what choice did they have?
All while talking to Wells Fargo about that crucial $6 million line of credit. Wells Fargo was a nervous, unprofitable internet company, but impressed by the growth, the passion.
Fred and Tony were just living week to week, incredibly stressed, hoping Wells Fargo would come through. Felt like they were right on the edge.
And then June 2003, right in the middle of deciding which vendors to pay that week, the phone rings.
It's Wells Fargo. Loan approved, Zappos saved. That Indiana Jones escaping the Rolling Stone door analogy feels pretty accurate.
Huge collective sigh of relief. Now they could finally shift focus from pure survival back to long-term goals.
And they set a big one. $1 billion in gross merchandise sales by 2010. Believed they could capture 20% or more of the growing online footwear market.
How? By doubling down on that revolutionary customer service. Best selection, free shipping return standards, surprise upgrades.
Knowing it wasn't about short-term profit, but building an unbeatable long-term customer experience. The goal. Out of Amazon, in customer focus. Build the platform, then expand categories.
And then came another massive decision. Move the whole company to Las Vegas.
Yeah, the source includes Augie's perspective, a huge wrench, leaving SF friends and family. Seriously, we're moving.
But they recognized how special and tight-knit the Zappos culture was, about 90 people then. Friends were coworkers. They decided to go.
And the Vegas move almost forced that culture to intensify. Fewer existing connections meant they leaned on each other, became instant friends and family, working and hanging out constantly.
It was a very intentional move to protect and prioritize that culture, learning directly from the link exchange experience. And it worked. They hit that $1 billion goal in 2008, 2 years early. What did they attribute that success to?
Those three pillars: customer service, building the brand via word of mouth, culture, leading to the core values, and pipeline, employee training and development, BCP.
Their core belief, brand, culture, pipeline are the only things competitors can't easily copy long-term. Everything else is replicable.
But the culture book idea really shows that commitment. Jen Lim thought it was unusual, risky.
Because it wasn't a polished corporate history, right? It was raw employee submissions, unedited, describing the culture in their own words, good and bad, with real employee photos.
Total transparency. Tony apparently found it funny when people called them a cult, saying, hey, if it's a cult about making people happy, sign me up.
The customer service obsession continued. 247 warehouse, surprise upgrades, being near the UPS hub for speed, creating WOW.
Viewing every customer interaction, thousands a day, as a brand-building opportunity, not a cost center. Running the call center completely differently.
Focusing heavily on phone calls, even though only 5% of sales came that way, and most calls didn't lead to immediate sales. Why?
Because they figured every customer contacts them eventually, maybe only once. That one interaction had to be memorable, create a positive, lasting impression.
Helping with returns, giving faster advice, just talking to someone lonely. It was about connection. The public tours also grew organically from that openness.
This led to that key insight. Culture and brand are two sides of the same coin. Brand is just a lagging indicator of your internal culture. Your culture is your brand.
Building brand today, he argued, isn't like 50 years ago with ad spend. It's about culture, employees as ambassadors.
Which explains their hiring process. Standard interviews plus a separate HR interview purely for culture fit. Willing to pass on talent to protect the culture, long-term over short-term.
And the training. Everyone, accountants, lawyers, developers, everyone goes through the 4-week customer loyalty training, including 2 weeks taking calls. Customer service is the whole company.
Plus, the offer, paying people $2,000 to quit after training if they weren't fully bought in, ensures people are there for more than a paycheck. Almost no one takes it.
They were even transparent with reporters, letting them wander and talk to anyone. No curated lists.
And the source really emphasizes having committable core values. Values you'll actually hire and fire based on. Otherwise, they're just meaningless words on a plaque.
Developing their 10 core values took a year, involving the whole company, making sure they were real and livable.
The story of Martha the cashier's random act of woe-ness illustrates a value in action. The mission became to live and deliver WOW. And values got tied to performance reviews.
Let's touch on those core values because they're so central. Deliver WOW through service. We've covered that. It's foundational.
Embrace and drive change. Key idea here is change comes from everywhere, often bottom up. Never accept the status quo, adapt fast. Constant evolution keeps competitors guessing. Others can copy your site, but not your speed of change.
He even throws in a math geek calculation about 1% daily improvement leading to massive annual gains.
Create fun and a little weirdness. Don't be boring or overly corporate. Laugh at yourselves. Find humor daily. The Timmy Chat example, talking in the third person, they just rolled with it.
Be adventurous, creative, and open-minded. Take smart risks, learn from mistakes, push boundaries, bring creativity everywhere, even HR, like the speed dating for hiring idea.
They even asked interview questions about risks taken or rules broken to gauge this value.
Pursue growth and learning. Personal and professional growth is vital. It's a joint effort company, provides opportunity. Employee needs the drive. It's never done, always hard work. Doing hard things well keeps competition away.
Build open and honest relationships with communication, crucial as you scale. Go the extra mile communicating. Build strong internal relationships. Robin P's story about the Zappos family support really hits this home.
Build a positive team and family spirit. Teamwork, initiative, ownership. Feel like family and a team. Strong bonds inside and outside work.
Do more with less. Operational focus, efficiency, hard work, continuous improvement, seeing roadblocks as challenges. The story about creatively making yams illustrates finding resourceful solutions.
Be passionate and determined. Belief in hard work, extra effort. An employee's story about discipline saving leading to big goals shows the power of this.
And lastly, be humble is listed as one of the 10.
The source also stresses vendor partnerships. Fred learned at Nordstrom. Abusing vendors fails long-term. Partnering succeeds.
Zappos focused on building strong, positive, long-term relationships. Benefits were huge. Help with planning, getting scarce product, unique items, marketing collaboration, even input that led to their vendor extranet.
Wells Fargo gets another shout-out as a key partner who believed in them and invested time personally.
Then 2008 hit. Tough economy, retail down, e-commerce down for the first time. But Zappos apparently had incredible results, despite it all.
They had just given everyone a 10% bonus for exceeding 2007 goals.
But looking ahead at 2009 forecasts, they made proactive cuts, laying off 8% to ensure they stayed profitable and cash flow positive. Because they were still growing and profitable, they avoided the deeper cuts others made.
They framed it as an opportunity to strengthen the culture further, make the company healthier, requiring everyone's commitment.
And they assured employees there were no plans for more layoffs. That 8% felt sufficient based on their numbers. Expressed real gratitude for how the team pulled together.
Let's talk about the pipeline growing talent internally. The source critiques the typical people are assets view.
Right. You lose assets if people leave or their skills get outdated. External hires might not fit the culture. Zappos' approach. Grow your own talent.
The merchandising department was the prime example. Hire entry-level assistants, put them in a 3-year development program, training, certification, more responsibility, aiming for management roles.
And hiring entry-level was based on passion for the category. Fashion lovers for couture, runners for running gear, hikers for outdoors.
The goal was a clear path. Assistant buyer, buyer within 3 years, then senior buyer, director, VP.
They plan to roll out similar pipeline programs across all departments, supported by a pipeline team offering courses, some required for promotion. The idea was unlocking employee potential, but again, it's a joint effort. The employee has to want to grow.
Okay, nearing the end of the journey in the source, navigating investors, specifically the board, Tony mentions his own discomfort with public speaking initially.
Yeah, dreaded it, memorized speeches, lost sleep, but realized it was a skill he could develop. Important for building the brand. An example of that, pursue growth and learning value personally.
The board, particularly Sequoia, had a different focus though, right? Financial performance, expecting an exit within 5 years, typical VC stuff.
Exactly. They weren't necessarily signing up for long-term culture building or things not directly tied to e-commerce metrics at a relatively quick financial return.
This created alignment issues. Tony, Alfred, Fred didn't want to sell. Zappos felt like a calling, too much invested emotionally.
They saw it as just another challenge. Their solution, buy out the board. Estimated cost, $200 million.
So in early 2009, they started trying to raise money from new investors, PE firms, wealthy families to fund this buyout.
And right in the middle of that process, Amazon reached out. They've been talking for years, apparently.
The decision to join Amazon came down to 2 key questions for Tony.
1, will this speed up Zappos' brand growth and mission delivery? 2, will Zappos stay in control of its culture and destiny?
After talks, the answer to both felt like yes.
The terms were critical. Zappos stays separate, gets Amazon resources, but keeps building its own brand culture. Mission unchanged, keeps its own vendor relationships.
Tony emailed all employees announcing the deal, asking them to read the legal language carefully.
Followed by an all-hands meeting, spending an hour going through it, answering questions, with Amazon folks there too.
His reflection to employees: wouldn't change much, learned from mistakes, just wished things could have happened faster sometimes. Finally, the source brings it back to happiness, business, and fractals.
Yeah, it's a fascinating connection he makes. He mentions research on happiness lottery winners, reverting to baseline, life goals not always bringing sustained joy. People chase these things anyway.
He parallels that with business, then introduces fractals, things that look similar at different scales, like snowflakes or mountains.
And here's the fractal he sees. Research shows personal happiness often involves pleasure, passion, and purpose. Research on great long-term companies points to profits, passion, and purpose. See the similarity. Profits, pleasure, but passion and purpose are identical. Same pattern at different scales.
That's a powerful idea. The source includes that Buddha quote, too, about happiness not decreasing when shared, like lighting candles.
Then ends with some short tweets to live by. Wisdom from Hsieh, Truman, Castaneda, Pu, Lao Tzu, even a funny note found after a car break-in.
Which brings us to the end of this deep dive into delivering happiness, Tony Hsieh's journey, and the Zappos story.
We've traced it all the way from childhood worms and buttons through link exchanges' rise and cultural shift, the search for meaning, betting everything on Zappos during intense struggles, taking operational control, the inventory pivot, building that legendary culture and service, navigating investors, and finally the Amazon deal.
Yeah, the themes just keep repeating, don't they? Passion, perseverance, learning from failure, the absolute centrality of people and culture, and that relentless search for something bigger than just money.
So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. Thinking about that fractal idea, the parallel between personal happiness, pleasure, passion, purpose, and business success, profits, passion, purpose.
Yeah.
How does that connection change your perspective on what really matters in your own work and maybe even your life?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.